Welcome to Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th, 2020. Not Jason, it's Courtney Gooden this morning in Los Angeles, California, our reader today. Courtney, what have we got?
First up is from somewhere in Canada. Alan Scott asks, I'm trying to set up a Google account to get email on a new computer. Google is trying to verify my account by sending a Google prompt to my iPhone. But I don't have that account on my phone yet, so I don't get the prompt. Any ideas?
We're going right back to Courtney for the answer. Courtney?
Well, you could set it up on your iPhone first rather than your computer. That would be might be one solution. And then if it asks for two-factor authentication, give it your email account that you already have on your computer. Since you're probably going to want to check your mail on both of those devices. The other thing is you could set up two-factor authentication with your Google account on your computer with SMS, which is not advised, but Google has this second OAuth authentication that they send to your phone that I don't think it uses SMS, but you could set it up for SMS at least to get set up. And that way they could send an SMS message to your iPhone without a Google account on it. So that might be an idea.
Next question.
From Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri. Alex, are you involved with Glen Phillips July 11th live stream? If you can't say, the secretary will disavow any knowledge of the question.
Watch out. It's going to blow up in our hands, the tape recorder. Alex, what do you think?
I'm not involved with this one, but I will watch it and see how it goes. This looks like it's put on by a website called volume.com, which I haven't been familiar with, so it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Glenn is great live, so should be a good show.
Next question.
By the way, that's July 11th, Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's free ticket.
There you go. Next question.
From Scott Tupper in Livermore, California. I had to restart NDI Discovery server today to get my sources to appear. Is this something that I need to do on a regular basis?
Ronnie Hofsway in Norway is going to help us out this morning. Ronnie?
I haven't seen that happening in my many tests of that. I think it could be related to something else underlying. Maybe, even if this is a very lightweight daemon or program that is running, it could be that there are some other stuff going on the same machine. So if you're running this on a machine where it does a lot of other stuff, you might have a network congestion situation. It could be that the machine is vastly underpowered, but for instance, if you're running this on some really, really low-powered machine, I'm not sure if you should be able to have this running for months and months. Since my tests, I've run it for like 3 or 4 weeks without any hitches. So this can also be related to a lot of devices. So that I'm really not sure. I haven't seen that happening in our environment.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I run a couple NDI Discovery servers, and they just stay up for months and months and months and months. I don't have to intervene, and they're not super high-powered machines either. But you do want to make sure that they're doing their thing. You could check Task Manager, but one of the things I would also be keenly looking at is what is your router doing? Do you have a static IP? I would reserve that MAC address and just make sure. The other thing is to make sure that it's staying on that IP address, because basically you don't want it to fluctuate at all. And then the other thing, make sure that all of the versioning is correct. So if you've upgraded to 6. I believe it's 01 or something, 6.1, whatever the latest version is, make sure you're all the devices, so the clients as well as the NDI Discovery server. And then there might be some MDNS issues that's beyond my brain capability. There's some like IGMP query stuff that if it's one of those things, that might require jumping into the NDI groups on Facebook and having Dr. NDI lend a hand. But the basics are check your router, because I think that's where it's happening, but it should be running smoothly. The other thing is I run a backup NDI Discovery server, so you can put a comma. So you could say like 192.168.1.189 is one of mine. And then you could do comma and then have a .190. And if your primary goes down, your secondary just kicks in. And all it is text. It's just a listener and a receiver. And it's basically just source and destination, source and destination. It's kind of like an XML file where it's just registering. And then when something like vMix asks, hey, what's on the network, it just is immediately there. And it's so nice how fast, once you start using a discovery server, that you see your sources appear. So I recommend anybody who's using NDI, if you have a multiple device network, then I would definitely be using one of those NDI discovery servers.
Thank you. Next question.
Next one comes in from right here in Los Angeles. Robert Green has the question. Extra Hours had guests last night. How was the show?
Oh, I wasn't able to watch it. I'm fascinated too. Guy, how was everything?
Yeah, I was filling in for Grant hosting last night. He is away in production, and we had some guests. I wanted to spice things up a little bit, so I thought since there was a lot of interest in Dante AV that we would invite some guys that have some new products. And so over the weekend, I tried it myself, just experimenting a little bit, and it was fascinating because I wanted it to be informational for everybody, not just a pitch for hardware, but it was really cool to just get an idea of where the industry is going, because there's things like control. We talked about Audinate buying Iris and this control capability and where that's going, and Dante AV versus NDI. So there was just a lot of action-packed information inside of there, and thanks to Alex and Jeff Keithley and Jeffrey Powers for jumping on and just making it that much more dynamic.
Nice, very nice. Ronnie Hofsoy, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I had to stay awake at 3 a.m. And just to had to watch this show because I felt it was important to follow. And the company that was presenting is called Turtle AV, and this is their mega menu of thing that they are doing. They are a lot into Dante, both AV over IP, and they also do a lot of converting from, for instance, Dolby Atmos into NDI feeds, and some of the things that they are winning prizes for is some of the things that we can see here. They even have a hardware device to be controlling the matrix of the Dante streams, and they also have controllable mic preamps and line inputs and outputs up to 16 by 16, and they are also having two channels interfaces going just in or just out. So and common for all these analog interfaces is that they have controllable preamps, and most of them also have a DSP built in. So really cool products, and I think I would have to visit them if they are going to show off the products at IBC this September.
We're looking forward to that. I know you were talking the other day on the show about perhaps getting some people together for IBC coming up. You know, there's just so much action in the cyberspace video delivery / comms with that. It's so fastly moving, that I just appreciate, Guy, what you're doing and bringing this kind of stuff out to public so that anybody who's interested can hop onto an office hours late night show and learn a lot more than they knew before about this fundamental plumbing of the internet. Guy, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, and the other cool thing was having somebody like Jeff Keithley on that actually uses a lot of Dante in production. Some of the things that I didn't even realize that the products did is because I have a Behringer X32, which is still in the box because it bombed on me during a show. So it hasn't been taken out of the box in like 8 months. I should just sell the dang thing. But I'd feel sorry for the next person who owned it. So it's just sitting there in like the graveyard. But as I looked at that 16 by, I was like, that's all I needed. And the fact that you could go in there and remote control things, I was like, oh, wow, I could just turn the mic pre. So during that show where things bombed, I could have just had my iPad and just restarted from there instead of having to walk up to the stage. The X32 was on the stage, so I had to walk up in front of 1,000 people and restart and get on my hands and knees, which was embarrassing. So I don't recommend the Behringer X32 anymore. It's once bitten, twice shy.
But I'm just thinking about when I was starting my career, we would go to NAB and we would get brochures and we'd be able to maybe talk to the engineers in charge of it. We'd go back, we'd read for a week or two, then maybe call somebody we'd met and ask some questions about it. You had all this kind of time to get used to a piece of equipment before you actually committed to it and bought it. Now everything's online and people are just clicking and ordering things they land on their desk and they have no clue about the scope of the capabilities of these things. So again, congratulations to you.
The other cool thing is when you're at those shows and you give those engineers some feedback, and because a lot of times they're not the public facing people, they take it to heart. Like last night, Alex just said something that he would like, and they were like, you could see the light bulbs going off. It was like a guitar to Dante adapter, and it was like, what's the total addressable market for that? My brain just started going, okay, what kind of numbers are we talking here? Is there like 1,000 guitar people that would like one of these, or is there 10,000?
I think it could be pretty big.
Yeah. So that conversation in public, live, through things like what we do here every day, really does shape the state of the industry, or at least it can quietly shape corners of it. And I think that's very powerful and very cool. Anyway, Guy, thank you for bringing that to us. Next question.
Next one comes in from a gentleman named Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. And Guy says, besides StreamYard, what services can one use to give a guest on a show the opportunity to stream a live show to their channels without us having to handle their credentials?
Ronnie Hofsoy, your thoughts?
I have to ask, Guy, is this because you can do double-ended streaming, so each participant can do their own streaming? Is that how you're thinking?
So when I did this Tesla event in Austin with Noah Sargent, at the very end of it, this YouTube influencer walked up to me and he's just like, hey, could I use your laptop for a second to log out of the stream? And I was like, sure. And then I looked and he had like hundreds of thousands of followers, and he was on my laptop having to stop the stream. So what Noah was doing was he was doing the show, but giving the influencers the ability to restream. And so I looked at restream.io, and it has some kind of ways of doing it. And in the past, I've handled like big accounts where I've had to handle their credentials, and it's just you feel like, oh man, like I have their whole channel. Like one lady had 3 million on hers, and one of my staff accidentally hit go live and pushed out a stream while we were still in testing, not once but twice. And so and this was back in the days when the alert would fully go off, like everybody got it. So you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want people handling this. But if you could just give them the ability, then it's like, hey, you could make sure that the stream's coming in, and at that time, if you want to push, like we have a 10-hour show and their hours at hour 9, they could just turn on and go live at their whim and not up to us. We're just giving them the feed essentially, but they don't have to know a bunch of crazy 1080p 1440 whatever numbers to populate. They just do their thing.
Ronnie, you wanted to continue?
Yeah, the only way I would think of this, but this is probably something you have thought of yourself, is if you have everything going in a Zoom meeting, you can of course just have a memo on each end, or some of the other clients that are actually doing this, and they can stream whatever they want from the meeting as long as they get the correct permission. So we've done something similar like this in Restream.io, as you mentioned already. It's not that easy to do. It sounds easier than actually doing it in practical terms. So Zoom would be my go-to together with Mimo or something similar.
Don't forget, we run on your questions, so you can ask questions, chat about the questions, vote on them. Voting is very important because the ones with the most votes are what we get to quicker and spend the most time talking about. So just go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two, and they're just some very, very small hoops to jump through. They're very easy and very simple. But once you're in, you can vote on and discuss the show's questions in real time. There's really a lovely community that's operating every day during our show where people are adding even more wisdom and information to the things we talk about on the air. So that's officehours.global/join. All right. Guy, did you raise your hand late?
Yeah, I had one more thing to ask, because if it's just YouTube and somebody gives the link to your show, so last night's an example, Turtle AV pushed out on their LinkedIn just the YouTube link with some text. And I've heard that these these platforms will demote you for putting a YouTube link. I think Alex might be able to speak more to this, but if we were to give them a feed instead and they were to just drop it into their LinkedIn and they were streaming from their LinkedIn, would that post have gotten way more reach and not gotten squashed down? And I know that's the case on like X because Alex has mentioned that he's seen it.
Alex, you want to comment?
Yeah, it does seem like if links out of a platform really do seem like, I mean, no one, if you ask people there, they'll say no, but it does seem like we get penalized every time we do it, definitely with X. A lot of times we ask for, I mean, we don't really ask for credentials very often. We used to. So it used to be that we used to have credentials. There was a point where I had logins for probably almost 300 YouTube sites, and I realized that I should probably delete them. Like they're all in LastPass. so I wasn't paying much attention. It was like 6 months into it, and I was like, I probably should get rid of all of these. But really, all we ask for now is for when we're trying to do that, we just ask for the RTMP inputs, and a lot of these things are set to auto. Start at the first bit. So as soon as it starts seeing something, it starts to stream. So we start streaming to it when we want to go live, and usually that's after we started the countdown clock. And then we just fire up live and go. And so YouTube can do that. I mean, the one, if you're watching us on X right now, X is, we just tell it this is a daily show. If we stream to X on the daily show, it shows up. We're not doing anything to make that happen, but we try to just stick with. And then the other thing that we do to not have the full credentials is for them to make us a manager on the page. And so then we're a manager. They can make us a manager. They can take away the manager. But we're only have enough rights that to start the show, and we're not getting the core rights. Because the other thing you don't want is, even if they just gave it to you and took it away, even if they delete their password, them giving you your password is them providing a hint to how they build passwords. So unless they're doing random hashes from LastPass, which is what they should do, or something, password or whatever, if they give you something that has a code, you would see it. Like when they used to give me passwords a long time ago. This is more than a decade ago, because people were wondering. They would give it to you, but you could see how they build passwords, and that's a huge shortcut for someone trying to hack into the system.
Yeah, it's kind of a security violation to let them understand how it works. Ronnie, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, so just to reiterate on the Restream.io, the way we did it, we just shared this link. So that's actually our RTMP's pull string, and they got this from us. So we produced everything, put that into Restream.io. They got this pull link, whereas they had to pull that down and put it into their own encoder and out to their own channel. So that is something that is easily done in the Restream.io and probably a few other services as well.
Good conversation. Thank you all. I learned I didn't learn, but I'm aware now of more stuff than I was before this conversation. So thank you all. Next question.
Next one comes in from Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. Tony asks, I have experienced several power outages as recently as this morning. What are some devices to shut computers down properly?
Nigel Dessau is going to start us off here. Nigel?
Well, for most client situations, what people do is put an uninterrupted power supply, like an APC, on their PC. And that actually doesn't shut it down for you, but you hear audibly when it's switched in, and that gives you time to shut it down. Most Macs come back pretty quickly on their own, assuming you have the right saving on your documents and stuff. PCs, I just don't know about. Someone else, maybe Courtney, can cover that. Now, there is software. APC used to have a product called PowerShoot that was designed to interface between the uninterruptible power supply and it's really a server product, both Linux and Windows, I think. I don't know if they still sell it. That would send across a USB or a serial connection a message to a piece of software on the server saying that there had been a power down, and then the machine would, technical word, quiesce itself, which is slowly shut down in an organized way so it can reboot. But for most clients and most personal situations, we put APCs or uninterruptible power supplies on our systems. That gives us long enough to solve the problem.
Excuse me, I'm writing down the word quiesce. Courtney Gooden.
Quiescent. All right. Yes. Sounds like something I'm going to have for lunch. Nice sandwich with quiescent.
Cheese quiescent. Anyway.
Yeah, Nigel kind of hit on it. Most uninterruptible power supply manufacturers, I have one from CyberPower, have a app that is available for it. CyberPower has some that are cross-platform. It works on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. You install the app, and then you run a USB cable from the uninterruptible power supply to your computer that is running the CyberPower. This one is called Power Panel Personal, and this is the Windows version. And what it does is it has a little server that you can log into that it opens up, that you can monitor your power supply, you can monitor your incoming voltage, your battery levels, those kind of things. Plus, when it fails, if your power fails and it switches over to the UPS, it will email you, as well as, and you can log in and monitor what's going on, how much battery is left, what's still up and what's down, and how long it's been out. And it can also automatically shut down your computers that are plugged in and running this app in the event of a power failure, when it gets down to like 30% left on the batteries or 20%. So you can set a level that it will do a kosher shutdown of your computer so that when the power comes back on and the UPS wakes back up again, when it receives power again, it can reboot some of those computers if you have them set correctly in BIOS to restart automatically on power failure. And then it runs a little stub on startup that reinitializes itself and runs the Power Panel Personal once again and gets you back up online. If you have multiple computers, like I say, there's a Mac version and a Windows version. If you have mixed computers online, I'm not sure if it will talk to the other computers, from the one that's plugged in. I think you can only plug in one computer to the USB port on the power on the UPS. But so I think once it gets on, it may talk to any other computers that have the app running on it to coordinate shutdown between them, even if they're not plugged into the USB connector on the power supply. I'm hoping they do that. I've not verified that, though.
Hey, don't forget, we do have extra shows occasionally. In fact, last night, we were talking about the one last night. That's Grant's Extra Hours. That happens regularly. Tuesday, we've been doing occasional special shows. There's actually a committee that's working on additional ones for the future. Thursday, the Rundown with David Paskin, hosts a panel that takes a deep dive into the why behind the latest techs. Always fun there. So just so you know, in the evening, 6 p.m. Pacific is when these generally start. You might find additional shows that you'll enjoy here on Office Hours. Next question.
Next one comes in from New York City. David Brady asks, in Mac OS X or 10, how do you edit the contextual menu of an app like Keynote? Right-click and then a list of documents shows up. To clear this out, is it a pref file somewhere?
We turn to our Keynote guru, Alex Lindsay.
I was trying to find that contextual pop up. It didn't show up when I opened up Keynote. I was kind of while everyone was answering the last question, I was looking at it, looking for it. There is, I believe that somewhere in Keynote, it might be under the support, application support. You may find a shared file list that you may be looking for that could have that more recent information. But I'm not 100% sure. But I couldn't even get it to pop up when I did it in Keynote. I didn't know it had a recent file list. So there's recent documents, and I don't know. The only way I know to do the recent documents is you have to go into your preferences and set your recent to 0 and then save or close it, and then set it back to whatever it was before 10, and everything will be gone. So if you set it to 0 once, if you're looking for the recent file list or the recent apps, that's how you can do it there.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas. Jeff asks, what clamps do you suggest to give acoustic panels 1.5 to 2 inch air gap from the wall and remain aesthetically pleasing?
Guy Cochran, do you have a solution for this?
So I had this same problem, and I didn't use clamps, but I checked out what a friend of mine who gave me these panels. You can see some of them behind me. There's another one down there. This is called the Vic Fix, and basically it takes these diffusion panels, and it's a piece of wood, and the piece of wood then has some hooks on it on the other side that allow you to take these on and off. So it's by acoustic is the name of the brand, and it's just it ships in a kit that you put it together. So you just got to put a couple screws together, and then it has these very sharp things that these metal, you can barely see them. Yeah, so the metal piece right there is what is sharp and is digging in. So you can get an idea. Actually, I could take one off. Here's what it looks like. And then here's the sharp piece right there that hooks on. So that's from Acoustic. It's called, I think, the Vic Fix. I'll put a link in the chat. I'll dig it up.
Nice. Courtney Gooden, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Guy but that frame remains on the wall when you take the acoustic panels off, so it's not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, or do you have to paint it the same color as the wall?
Well, that's the thing is, if you put these just directly on the wall, it leaves a big mess because they give you spray. If some of you have done this before, you're going to have to repaint the wall. Whereas this, you just find the studs, screw it into the wall, and now you just have a couple screw holes. But yeah, that's
but once you take
you had to
off, you still see that big frame on the wall, right?
Yeah, but he's not asking to take them on and off, right? Give acoustic.
I thought he says be aesthetically pleasing, but clamps too.
It's beautiful. I mean, if you saw, like, here's some of the studios that these guys do. I mean, these guys are the best in the world. I mean, there's Prime Acoustic, there's some other brands, but go through the Vicoustic site and look at these professional audio rooms. They do restaurants, they do airports, they do big studios. These guys are the best in the business.
Alex, you had some thoughts? Oh, I'll come back to you, Corey.
Mickey suggested also these impaling clips. So these are offset clips from Oralex that will, if you're just talking about your soft goods on the wall, these obviously can be screwed into the wall, and then you can attach your acoustics to them.
Courtney, you wanted to come back in and finish that thought?
I was just going to say Z cuts, which is a carpenter's thing of where they cut a 45-degree angle on the top of a little piece of wood, and then there's another piece of wood with another 45-degree on the opposite side so that they mesh together like that. But you have to make them pretty thick to keep them about 2 inches from the wall. But so you could use something like that if you're a pretty good carpenter and you have a miter saw handy. You can use that kind of securing, and then it would just look like a wooden strip across the top of the ceiling, and then you could hang your panels on that with those wooden Z-cuts at the top.
Yeah, those are pretty heavy panels, so that seems like a very good solution. I have notoriously just used command strips, which is a 3M product that is removable after you put it up there. And my solution for getting any kind of acoustic panels away from the wall was to literally take the foam core that I spray mount using 3M spray mounting adhesive. I would mount my acoustic treatment stuff to a piece of foam core, usually the thick, I think it's like 5/8 foam core that you can get from art supply stores, and then use command strips and then put buffer pieces of foam core in between. 2 or 3 of those pieces of foam core cut into blocks will get it away from the wall. So that's a cheap way, and the big advantage of it, those command strips hold pretty definitively. And after you're done, that final command strip that's adhered to the wall literally can come off, leaving no residue behind. So it just depends on the weight. I would not do that for those kind of constructed sound absorption panels. I think the weight would be too much if it's cantilevered out from the wall, but that's how I usually do my acoustic treatment. Next question.
Next one comes in from Berlin, Germany. Andre Dali asks, in German event planning, taking care of maximum sustainability gets more and more important, especially when you are participating in a tender. Is this a global trend?
Ronnie Hofsøy, you're in Norway. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, in Scandinavia, and specifically Norway, tenders or bids that are organized by the government or the municipalities or those type of organizations is increasingly adding requirements to everything from CO2 footprint to what type of cars you are using to load in and out stuff, etc. And it is something that the government has asked everyone to start looking into, and we actually lost one bid because of one of these high requirements. 35% of the bid was related to how good you were handling the environmental part, and that is kind of a high thing and an important thing to look at in the coming years.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, a lot of for larger companies, the RFPs typically are including a couple pages of declarations around sustainability. And a lot of us saw this coming. I mean, during COVID, a lot of things dropped down, and there were a lot of people that were pretty focused on making sure that this, as events started back up again, that we would start tracking the impact. Usually, I have to admit that most of my arguments inside of that RFP is that we are live streaming the event, which means that we are allowing people to stay home or stay in their home area. And I start to do, if you calculate the number of people and you calculate, I have some math that I've given them of the average travel distance, carbon footprint. We're actually carbon negative, or carbon positive, depending on how you want to talk about it. But we're actually below zero because the existence of what we do reduces the carbon load of the entire event. So usually that's where I take that conversation, which is not, I don't think where anybody else takes it, but rather than talking, to me, it doesn't seem logical to talk about how much I'm impacting the environment doing something that massively reduces the impact of the event on the environment. So I make sure that they're calculating that or doing it. And we've been pretty successful at that argument.
If you have questions you want to get into the show queue as quick as possible, you can type askofficehours.global into your web browser. I'm going to put up the QR code on the screen right now so you can capture that. It's askofficehours.global. If you're watching the show, just use that and it'll take you into the queue. They'll look at it, and askofficehours.global, one of the quickest ways to get a question into the show. Next question.
The next one comes in from Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri. Are power conditioners important for electronics used at home?
Nigel Disavow, your thoughts?
Yeah, it depends, as with everything. Two variables, I think, worth considering. What is the quality of the power coming into your home? And the second is, what devices are you powering up? For most people in most situations, the quality of power in the house is pretty good. If it's not a basic surge protector, which you can get connected to your UPCs, is a great way to make sure you don't blow anything up. And so that sort of manages the power coming into the house. Then there's the question of what is it powering? Now, if you have musical instruments, a very high quality electronics, sound systems, I know people with $500,000 speaker systems where they're very sensitive to the sound and to the power coming in, then you can put conditioners on those devices. Hard to do in a whole house situation, much better to do on the specific devices you're looking to really manage the power in. So you've got what's coming into the house and then what are the devices. And if you're very sensitive to the devices, you can spend a lot of money conditioning the power. Courtney
Gooden.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where you live. And Nigel was saying, the condition, the stability of your power company, and a couple of other things. If you live in an area that gets a lot of lightning, we don't in Los Angeles, so we never really have to worry about spikes. There are two types of power conditioning that goes on. One is overvoltage protection, which is spikes, which is it's very, very rare in a municipally supplied power situation that your voltage would go above 110 or 220, whichever you're using in whatever country you're in, because they manage that pretty well. The thing that can show up is a spike when lightning hits a power supply or hits for example, if you have cable where your incoming cable TV and or internet connection comes in over coax cable. A lightning strike on that can come right into your equipment. So you want to have your equipment connected to your, if you have a UPS, a lot of times they will have a connection that you run your cable through that will attenuate spikes, voltage spikes on that line across ground. And you have to make sure that your UPS has a good solid ground on it. As far as low voltage goes now, these days here in LA, it's been a big power problem for me because we get the situations when it gets hot, because it gets very seldom gets unusually hot here in Los Angeles, but today is one of those days where they're predicting temperatures up to around 110 to 115 in the valleys and deserts. So when it gets up to that high heat, there's such a demand on air conditioning that is not normally all on, that the voltage drops. The power companies can't deliver enough voltage to supply everybody, and they do rolling blackouts or rolling brownouts. And here at my house, we have ancient connections. Since it's a 100-year-old house, our electrical connections are not that great, and they don't handle low voltage very well. They don't handle voltage very well in the afternoons. The voltage will drop because everybody's air conditioner starts to come on when it starts to heat up. And my UPS, which I have right below me here, CyberPower 1500, will kick in once the voltage drops below about 90 volts, and it'll switch over to battery power. So that will protect your equipment once the voltage, even if it spikes, it'll switch very momentarily over. If there's just a momentary drop and it comes back. But if the voltage drops below 90 volts, it'll switch over and run it on batteries. And then after the batteries are exhausted, it shuts off. So you got to worry about that. But that'll protect you against low voltage. And one of the worst things for electrical equipment is voltage below 90. Most of the switching power supplies today that are built into most electronics can handle variable voltages between 100 to 220 and automatically switch voltages, whatever they see as the incoming, and then they will manage the power delivered to your electronic equipment. Older stuff that uses transformers to connect to do their down voltage to generate, let's say, 12 volts for a 12 or 18 or 20 volts for a stereo system. If it has an old style transformer, if you have vintage equipment in there before switching power supplies were invented, you may have a problem. A low voltage can fry that power supply. When the voltage gets below 100 volts, let's say, it can create problems heating and can blow out the power supply. So you want to make sure vintage equipment is plugged into some type of UPS that can protect it from low voltage brownouts, because that can be more destructive than an occasional spike, which any cheap power strip usually has MOV resistors in it, which will grab the spikes, but it does nothing for low voltage. So just bear that in mind. Those cheap strips that say, power conditioner strip, it'll just catch the spikes, but it won't catch the low voltages.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, everything that has been said, I would just, I'm amazed at the competence. One thing that is a problem in Arctic countries is the high voltage main, so the kind of core power distribution. They can accumulate a lot of snow and ice, and that can cause the wind to make them smack together when the storm is coming. And that said, we normally know when the storm is coming, so we tend to take the sensitive equipment, unplug it, and just leave it there for the next 24 hours or something. And I would just have to say that newer equipment is really very rugged when it comes to how sensitive they are to both brownouts and spikes. So in Norway, we generally doesn't think of that as a problem at all. When I had my UPS set up with an alerting system, I had it set to plus minus 2% variation. So that tells a lot about how well off we are with the power stability.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Henderson, Texas. Jeff Veely asks, which camera and zoom lens would you recommend for an 18 by 14 green screen studio filming keynote speeches? Hardware is BlackMagic, autofocus is required.
Alex Lindsay is going to start us off. Alex?
I'd probably get a 24-70 L series. I mean, that's the first lens that you get, in my opinion, for most BlackMagic cameras is the 24. You can get there is a Sigma version of that's about half the cost. That isn't too bad. It's a little softer than the L series, but that one is going to give you a place to kind of move around and go. Especially if you're shooting lots of different things, you'll need some other. You'll need a variety of focal lengths. You may decide that one is the right one, whether it's a 35. The only other thing I might get is a 35 millimeter full frame that you have there. That'll be kind of a 50 for you, which you may find that you use a lot in that studio.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I'd switch over to a Sony FR7, and then because he's asking what kind of camera and lens. So if you look at what Greg Gibson uses, he's got the 85 millimeter, and you go, hey, that's a prime. It's 1.4, but it's super sharp. And with the FR7, you could actually do what's called clear image zoom, and you could zoom around inside. And I would begin with the end in mind and actually throw in an Ultimate, because I'm spending your money. So why not have 7,000 here, 2,000 here, 10,500 here? There you go.
Alex, you want to return?
Yeah, and remember that that in when you're doing this kind of work, your depth of field is not quite as important as it is in other environments, and so you can actually get away with. You're also controlling your lighting, so you're not if you're trying to save money, you can really go down into the 4/3 inch chips and so on and so forth, and you're not going to. It's going to look relatively the same depending on how you process the background. So if you have the money for an FR7, look, I use FR7s all the time. I love FR7s. It's great chip, great lens, great autofocus. But if you are doing BlackMagic and you're trying to not spend quite as much money, you may find that the less expensive BlackMagic options might work as well.
Hey, if you value what we do here, the simplest way you can help is subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can volunteer and help the team out here. Go to officehours.global/volunteer, and that'll kind of get you on the path to that. Or you can simply donate to officehours.global/donate if you'd like to help us continue to put this show out every single day. Next question.
Next one comes in from Chuck Swan in Bristol, not England, but Wisconsin. It says, Alex has mentioned Shokz headsets. How do they get along with eyeglasses? Do the temples get in the way or interact with the bone conduction technology?
Alex, what's your experience?
I have both eyeglasses and Shokz, and I use them together all the time. The only complaint that I have is occasionally, if I'm not careful, my eyeglasses will get tilted just a little bit. so then everything, and my prescription is enough that it changes a lot depending on angle. So that's the only thing I would say is problematic with them. But overall, they work great together. They definitely don't have any effect on the bone conduction.
Corny Gooden.
Yeah, I'll agree about not having any effect. The only problem I have is I have reading glasses, which I forgot to bring this morning, that I put on and off a lot. And if I'm wearing Shokz, occasionally as I'm putting them on, the earpieces will run into the Shokz, and I just have to navigate to get them underneath. But it's not a big problem. They don't interfere with the sound at all. It's just getting them on and off occasionally. You'll have a little problem running into them.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Trinidad in the West Indies. Rian Smith asks, I have a mini PC in my rig, atem Extreme ISO, and 4 PTZ OPTICS type cameras, and I would like a better color balance them on site quickly. I use the PTZ OPTICS controller app. The first one we do, white balance, but would like a better and more accurate workflow.
Alex Lindsay.
So I never use white balance. Well, when I say never, there was some time in the distant past that I used white balance. I don't remember exactly when that was that I stopped using it, but it was probably 20 years ago that I stopped using white balance. And here's why. White balance puts you into Never Never land. You push that, and now it's made a bunch of decisions for you. And trying to match cameras from a white balanced setup, you either just do them all white balanced and be happy that they're kind of close, or you set things. So the advantage of having something like a PTZ OPTICS is if all the cameras are set the same, they should look pretty close to being the same. And I find that it is more important to be the same than to be perfectly accurate. So what I do is I typically, because I understand the math there, all my cameras are set the same. And then if I'm going to go in there, and again, there are a lot of other ways that for higher end versions of this that we do LUTs and all kinds of other things using charts. So if I have the time and the ability to use a Dumont chart or some other chart and do the corrections, I'm going to do it that way. But if I don't, and it's fast and furious, I want all my cameras to be set exactly the same. And then I'll go through and I'll change the temperature manually until I like it on one of the cameras. And then I just set all the other cameras to that temperature. And typically, if you're outside, you're going to start at 5,600, 5,200 is usually where I start, and kind of move it around. But it is, so that's where I set those things, so that my live image, but I want to make sure that the live image is the same. Like, that's what I'm more worried about. And if I can usually just changing that number is going to be enough. And if I decide I want to change some kind of tinting or something else, then I'm going to go through and do fine control over it. And again, this is my fast, rough way of managing it. Not like when I'm getting paid a lot of money to do it, then we're doing custom LUTs and we're sitting there in front of Dumont charts and we're making sure that everything's perfect for the live. I'm assuming you're talking about the live signal. So for a live event, we're going to do a lot of work. But if I have to go in there and nail it, you're going to find that if all those cameras are set exactly the same, they should look exactly the same if all you're changing is the number.
So I heard in my headphone just a second ago, there we go. We have another question. Next question.
Next one comes in from a fellow named Ronnie Hofse in Tromsø, Norway. What is the current status on the different ambisonic mic solutions being tested these days?
And Alex Lindsay is testing them. So, Alex, what do you say?
Yeah, so there's a lot of them that are out there, and ambisonic is about to become a lot more important because of what Apple's doing. We'll probably bring that up tomorrow and talk about it among the audio folks here. But there is the Apple Spatial Audio Format, ASAF, which is something that was talked about at WWDC. And basically what it appears, and there's not a ton of data yet, so Apple hasn't given us all the notes yet, but it appears that Apple is using the ambisonic envelope as a container that is larger than everything else, including Atmos. So Atmos is getting translated into that container. It's being put inside of that container. But what it allows for is higher order of, fourth, fifth, ambisonics. And so you have fourth or fifth order ambisonics that are there, that are available to it. There's plugins that are only available from Apple right now for Logic and Resolve. It looks like they're going to be opening up to Nuendo and Pro Tools and all the other usual suspects. But so ambisonic is going to be something that becomes more and more important. It depends on how you want to record the ambisonic. I have a second order core mic, which is it's just quirky. There's a lot of bits and pieces to it. So you have 8 mics, but it's a little bit painful to use, and it's a little noisy. The one that's the easiest one, if you're going to do analog to run around with, from my experience from an ambisonic perspective, is the Ambio from Sennheiser. That's a really easy one. It's first order, so it's not. It doesn't have nearly the resolution that a second order or third order might have, but it is a very solid mic. The one that I really enjoy is the Voyage USB mic, and that's just because you can plug it into your phone. You can literally you can just plug it into your phone. The phone will see all the channels, all 8 channels of the mic, and you can just record them to your phone. Now, if you need to record some kind of whatever environment on your camera, but then you can use it to resync it. Of course, you want to keep that mic close to where your camera is for positional purposes, but it's a really easy workflow. The other one that I'm going to be testing soon is the higher end version of the Voyage, which is the Dante version. So that's going to be the same 8 mics, except that it's now a Dante output from the microphone, and that can be then piped into something like the Scorpio or other things in the field and recorded as a clean signal. So that's one that I'm kind of interested in. But those, and then of course you have the H3, which is the little one that is made. If I throw something in my bag, like, hey, I might want to capture something, I use the Zoom H3 because it's all encompassed. It's a tiny little thing, and I can capture some stuff that's kind of fun. And it is, so it's a super easy mic to just kind of put up and capture stuff. It's very noisy. So the noise floor is very high in the H3, much higher. The lowest noise floor that I found has been with the Voyage mics, just because they're converting to digital directly inside of the mic. And so I see the lowest amount there. So those are the ones that I've been playing with, but I really enjoy it. I think that ambisonic is a lot of fun. And of course, we did test the 5200 from DPA, which is great, 5.1. What's nice about it is it's just raw 5.1 that goes straight in. But I do think that we're going to talk a lot about ambisonic over the next 6 months to 12 months, because it does look like it is the core technology that's underlying a lot of what Apple's doing, and potentially what Samsung and Google are doing with some of their formats as well. So there's Eclipsa, I think Eclipsa is the Samsung and Google I don't want to pay licensing surround format that is starting to arise as well.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. How do you use AI in your daily routine?
Courtney Gooden, start us off.
Well, I don't pay for any AI because I'm so cheap. But you do find that AI is now, if you live in the Windows world, I don't have the Apple intelligence, but if you live in the Windows world, we have Copilot, and Copilot is now part of every Windows PC. And if you pay for Microsoft 365 subscription for all the Office apps, which I don't pay for either, I use my old one-time version of Office that I've been putting on machines for about 20 years now, and it still works fine. I use Copilot. I have a couple of things that I use. This is what Copilot looks like. It pops up a window, and it now on the Windows machine. So it now supports microphone input, so it'll talk to you and you can talk to it. And it also has these little glasses, so you can paste a picture in and ask it questions about that. And you can ask it questions about a website, and it can give you answers and so on. So it's rudimentary stuff. It can create pictures, those kinds of things. It uses DALL-E 3 to create pictures. It's no Midjourney, and it takes a long time for it to generate pictures. But for the free version, I occasionally need it. But the latest thing I've started using is Amazon put me into the Alexa Plus. Hope I didn't trigger her. Out there, which is the new AI version of the Amazon personal assistant. And I've started using that. I just have it on my one in the bedroom that is on the nightstand. So when I wake up in the middle of the night and I have to ask it some crazy question or remember an appointment that I forgot to put in the calendar, it can now handle that. And it has a much chippier voice, and it sounds more like a real person. And you can ask it multiple things, and it will explain rather than just to give you, here's what I found on the web, instead of just giving you search results or Wikipedia results. It can take give you a multi-step answer, and it can also be agentic. You can ask her to go out and make a reservation for you at a hair salon, let's say, or some, if I had hair, I would do that. But it has become much more useful. I'm just still scratching the surface on it to find out what it can do, but it's a little less stupid than the old Alexa.
I now want to CQ a chippy quotient in all of my voices that are coming out of my system. Alex.
Yeah, my kind of daily what's around all the time, of course, is ChatGPT. I call ChatGPT Janet from The Good Place. And so I just push down a button on my phone and go, Janet. And I ask whatever I'm going to ask. And so I do that maybe a couple times an hour while I'm thinking about things and trying to figure stuff out. So it's pretty common. Once you have it that easily available, you're asking it things all the time. And so that's kind of the thing that I kind of do the most. Midjourney I use a lot for presentations. So items and ideas and things that I want to, concepts that I want to show that's mostly an image or a group of images. Like, for instance, I produced a couple hundred headshots so that if I want to do breakups of like how the Zoom thing is going to look or how the frames are going to look, I just have hundreds of people of all different backgrounds, all available to me in a library, so I can just kind of grab a couple people and throw them in. So those are the kind of things that I use pretty often. I'm digging into Claude Code to do to build some simple apps, which are maybe not as clean as a regular programmer, but a lot cleaner than I would write. So I find that one to be fairly effective. And then I'm doing a variety of animation with a little bit with Midjourney. I have to admit, I'm not as impressed with Midjourney as I think everyone else seems to be with their animation, but I am using Runway and starting to play with VO, and those are the ones that are kind of sitting on the top of my. And then I'm using one called Shapely for 3D. Generation, although there's a couple other ones that I'm starting to look at too. There's that the 3D model generation is something that is one of the next big things. Like, you saw images and text and video, but being able to build 3D models as assets is a big thing. And I think that there's one called Scenario that I'm tracking pretty closely, and a couple other Chinese ones that we're looking at.
Nigel?
Yeah, a couple of net ads. Obviously, every time I Google now, I get Google's AI as the first response to my Googles. I tend to use ChatGPT for research, but I found an interesting use of ChatGPT, which shows, I think, where this thing is going, which is we were doing a road trip a few weeks ago, 2,000 or 3,000 mile road trip, and we have a Tesla. So I asked ChatGPT to get me put together a route for me. I told them where I wanted to go and how many days I wanted to stay there, how long I like to drive between recharge, where that I want to Marriott for the nighttime, no more than 500 miles away, near a supercharger. Left it alone for a few seconds, and it produced me a very good plan how to do that road trip, all the stops. Now, in real time, we made some changes, but when it came to booking hotels so we could get advanced, booking benefits, it was a great way to know that I was going to stop the night on my road trip near a supercharger. So those sorts of things are fun to do with it as well.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Richard Wells in Tacoma, Washington. What new physical tools have you found to help you in production in the last year or so? In other words, speedwrench or niche multi-tool like things. And today is Amazon Prime Day.
Ooh, Guy Cochran, thoughts?
Spinning up the Amazon Prime deal. I got one that'll be on Amazon Prime, but the one that I'll start off with is one that Jarrett Keithley, Jeff Keithley's son, turned me on to as we were in production. He pulled out this little icon locking flex head ratchet and bit set, $39 at your local Harbor Freight. So this has, it's super tiny, but it also has just the regular Phillips and slotted bits. And then you got your Torx bits and your hex bits. But for $39, when I needed a tool and he pulled this out, I was like, oh, wow, that thing's awesome. So I would take a look at that icon. And then the other thing that I talked about the other day, which is on Prime Day deal for $13.98, is this little flashlight that you can charge with USB. And it's magnetic. So when you pull it off your keychain, you could stick it on something else and it lasts hours. But super, super nice, handy item to have. And I used this a ton on the last shoot that I was on. And I was constantly pulling it out, and because we're in a very dark studio and I was having to light up stuff, and it was nice having that in my pocket ready to go.
My wife will not let me within a block of a Harbor Freight without a leash on me because I may need this one time in the future. It's not a regular, but I just need, God, I find too much. Ronnie.
Yeah, it's not like a tool, but something I'm always bringing when we are doing productions is some kind of audio interface, and this one from Sonect has been a really saver for me. The Soundwire USB-C to XLR containing a 192 kilohertz 32-bit DAC is really good sounding. A little bit on the expensive side, but the quality is just awesome. Another thing that is also not a tool, but it's something from SmallRig. It's this small kind of magnetic phone mount with the holders for SSDs and similar, or even a power bank. Is really, really cool. We purchased a lot of them, and nowadays they are kind of being used everywhere just to hold your phone, primarily iPhones, but with a mag mount.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, a couple things that I finally went back just recently and bought. I used to have it that I wore it all the time, which was the Leatherman made a tread. It was a bracelet, and it's upstairs. Like I realized I was like, I'm going to show this, and I realized it's not on my wrist. But it's a bracelet, and it is TSA approved. But this is what it looks like, and it is. It's got lots of little tools on it. And when I'm doing production, for a long time before COVID, I would wear this all the time. Like I just had it on, and what if I need to tighten a screw on my camera plate, or if I need to open something up or pry something up, I didn't have to find anything. It was just on my wrist, and I found it to be very useful. I lost it at some point during COVID, and I finally went back to look for it, and Leatherman had it was $150 when I bought it, and Leatherman had discontinued it. But fortunately, there are a ton of Chinese manufacturers that are happy to make it for $30. So it's not a very expensive thing to put on your wrist, and it's particularly useful. The other thing recently that I found useful was this little folding camping square table. I can put this up in less than in 2 or 3 minutes. And it comes in like a little bag that I can just kind of, I just have it with my kit, and I can pop it open and just open it up really quickly. It fits in, it fits into my 1650, and I just, just one of the things that's down there as a kit. So I have to go to on site every week to into theaters and do some tests, and I got to put my stuff somewhere. And it's incredibly easy just to have one of these little camping things that just pops up and rolls out. And this one happens to work really well. So anyway, check it out.
There you go. Next question. Let's see if we can get the last one out.
All right, sneaking in the last one from Rayon Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. I want to do bird recording live in a forested area to YouTube, maybe 360 ambisonic. Low-cost option idea.
Alex, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so I would think about a couple different things. You can try to capture everything all around you, or capture things that are very specific, that are... So you could be using a shotgun mic, or even a parabola mic to capture specific birds, if that's what you're trying to do. Or you could use something like a 360 ambisonic. The least expensive ambisonic mic is going to be the H3 from Zoom. The next step up from that, I would say, is probably the Voyage USB mic. That's about $1,000, but it'll connect right to your phone. There's lots of other mics that you can use. Mickey said that for nature recordings, you might want a low noise microphones and low noise preamps. I would start with a pair of MKH 8070s or older, or MKH 816s or MKH 70s, maybe a pair of 416s if you want something more affordable. More affordable in Mickey terms. We have to remember that a Mickey is $3,200, and a pair of Neumann 82Is would sound great as well. So anyway, so those are the that's where Mickey would go. But I think that again, if you're looking for capturing all of it all around you, and you are looking for something that's ambisonic, then I think that the easiest one would be the H3. The second easiest one would be the Voyage USB to your phone.
Takes us to the end of things. Thank you so much for being here today. To our producers, everybody who put questions into the queue, thank you so much. The show does not run without you. You are the heart and soul of it, and we appreciate it every day when you show up and ask great questions. To the panelists who are here every single day asking or answering questions and providing their years and years and sometimes decades of expertise into this process, thank you. And to our amazing back-end crew, the folks silent in the back that we talk to during the show, some of them, and the others that we don't talk to because they're working other parts of the time quietly during the week and everything to make our show possible. A huge thank you to the back-end crew. You'll see some credits roll by. That's some of the people, so pay attention. Thanks for watching today, and we will see you here tomorrow, same time, same place. Oh, to lock traversal today, 52,000 miles, 84,000 kilometers, 413 million bananas for scale. Okay, I'm done.
Just squish that banana right in at the very last one.
Yes.
Didn't lose it at all.
Do not forget the bananas.
Okay, got to go shopping. Amazon days. It's Amazon 4 days now, So
Little truck's going to come pulling up in front of Courtney's place, here to deliver.
I looked through and I went, well, there's nothing I really need that I don't already have 3 or 4 of. So.
Yeah. This is the one day when my wife wants to keep me away from Amazon, not Harbor Freight.
Get that little GLI net KVM. They're really cool. You can control your computer from anywhere. It's really life-changing.